Hey guys, a lot of people like to debate about how the buzzes fly. Whether they're stable, straight, understable. Just generally speaking, for me at least, I've never really thought much of a buzz being stable. Pretty much a buzz is a buzz. I mean, you're usually going to get really good straight flight out of it, maybe a little bit of a finish. If it's beat up more, you throw it with a little attack angle, then you're probably going to get a little more of a dead straight flight as opposed to maybe having a little finish on it. But so I went ahead and brought out 10 different ones here just to kind of throw them and see how they end up. What I've got here, I've got a Flex Buzzz, old school one. That one's pretty much brand new, just it's an old one. There's a newer ESP Flex from Ledgestone last year. Got just kind of a regular run ESP. Got the the 4X claws. That's basically just ESP. Got a swirly blend, which was kind of like the predecessor to that plastic on the 4X claws, just ESP. Got the Big Z. Got one of the Pierce Z's. One of the Nate Doss Z's. This is a little on the softer side, probably not quite Z Flex, but getting closer to that. And I got a couple of the newer Ledgestone Sparkle Flexes. These are pretty soft. They feel an awful lot like the old school ESP Flexes. So I'm gonna go ahead and toss them and see how it ends up here. I actually have a target out here. I have 4 cones, just a little over 200 feet out there. I'm not throwing them as hard as I can, but kind of more the range that I would usually throw a buzz, around 200, 220 feet. And I would be throwing them pretty much with a fan grip like this as opposed to like a power grip. So anyway, let's see how it goes. First up. So already with no warm up, I've shanked one left and one right a little bit, but they were both pretty straight regardless. Seeing a pattern. They're all pretty much flying the same. Turned that one over just a little. Still right there though. Okay, let's go ahead and round them up, see where they're at. Okay, so this is pretty funny now. So The ground out here is a little irregular in spots, but after kind of walking up out here, so here's the circle I had marked, or the square, whatever. Basically from these little cones here, kind of had them over here, here, and over here. It's kind of hard to see, but essentially, if I'm standing in the center here, they're about 5 paces on either side here. So anyway, the only one I could really see easily was this very first one here. So I was aiming from way back here. I was on a little sidewalk near this parking lot. So, visually it's kind of hard to aim for something when you can't see it. So my reference point was the first cone here. So anyway, looking at what we've got here, the most right, which admittedly so, this was kind of shanked over to the right a little bit, was the Flex Buzzz. Got the Page Pierce one here. Those are pretty much almost in line with this. It's pretty close. Then just a little bit short here, we've got the Nate Doss. We've got one of the Sparkles. And then over here, we got a whole heap of them here. So the most left of all these was actually the other ESP Flex. Then we've got one of the Special Blend ESPs, a Big Z, one of the ledge stones, and here's the 4X Claw Buzzz right here, and right over here is just a regular ESP. So, this one here, none of them actually reached the mid cones, which are straight across from here. Looking at it, they're all pretty much like right up here near the very first cone. But all these are within about 25 feet of each other, roughly. It looks like a lot more on video, but if I step this one off here, at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paces to that one, which was the shortest, and that was the longest. And then right here, I'll step this off, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to right here. So I mean, it's a pretty small space. I mean, you're inside the circle, even if you're going from the one with the most left to the most right. And if you're just measuring from these to the center cone, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 5 paces there. And over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and about a half or so to this one here. So again, I don't know, overall, I mean, it's a pretty tight grouping considering, again, I'm only, in the upper 930s rated wise. I mean, if you were to bring some real pros out here to aim for targets like this, I'm sure they could probably pinpoint it even further, but I was just kind of generally trying to get these to an area about, 220 feet from me and just see how they fly. And doesn't really seem to be any rhyme or reason. And if you look at most of the flights, they're all going to be pretty similar. Maybe you up the speed, throw it with a power grip, my story is probably going to be a little bit different. But the people that usually are asking what buzz is more stable, or what's the right buzz for me, I mean, typically speaking, it's one of those things where if you're not throwing a buzz 300 feet, it's probably not going to matter very much, unless you're talking about very windy conditions. Right now today, there's almost no wind out here. I mean, it's dead calm. So that might factor in a little bit, but if you're throwing a buzz, a lot of times I'd say you're trying to throw a really straight line, preferably probably in the woods most of the time. A lot of times you're not going to have a whole lot of wind in the woods. So it's one of those things where, just as it sits, if you're throwing a buzz, the right Buzzz is what Buzzz feels best to you based on the plastic feel, I would say overall. I don't personally like a lot of the newer ESPs. They tend to be pretty slick. I've always favored the flexible ones, whether they be the ESP Flex, which is my first choice, or like some of the Z Flexes, just because they have a lot better grip in general. Buzzes are pretty consistent. There are some that may have a little more or less dome to them, depending on what they are. Like this right here is pretty darn flat. I mean, most of your ESP Flex ones are pretty flat. I've noticed that some of them more lately, kind of more like this Page Pierce one, they can tend to have a little bit more dome to them. I mean, it's still a relatively flat disc, but it's not quite as dead flat as some of the others. So that's probably one of your biggest factors. I mean, just plastic preference, and then, you know, get the weight you want, which a good majority of the Buzzes out there are going to be 170 plus. It's pretty hard to find a lightweight Buzzz, so that's another factor too, but it's not as much of one, just because if you're finding a Buzzz on the shelf, probably 7 out of 10 times it's going to be 174 plus, and maybe some of them could be 177. But anyway, so, you know, that's my results here. Again, I might trying to throw a little further, but typically I'm not going to be trying to throw a Buzzz much more than about 250 to 270 range, because at that point I'm, you know, into my fairway driver range, or just throwing a driver a little bit more lightly. So anyway, I wanted to do this just because, again, there's just been so many people that talk about Buzzz this, Buzzz that, and then, you know, the claw Buzzes, and I'm sure there's some people out there talking about, well, what about the 10 years? It's like, well, what about the 10 years? I mean, you know, find me one, I'll throw it for you. I have had one in the past. I got rid of it. I mean, the only reason I haven't gotten rid of this 4X right now is just because it's the last one that I have left. I sold all the other ones and replaced some of those with just regular ESPs because they were no different to me. You know, so, you know, if you want to throw one that's you know, $150 disc, have at it. But I'll tell you right now, the one that's $20 is just as good as the one that's 150. I think a lot of that's in people's heads. I've even seen a couple people that when you put a different disc in their hands, sometimes they even almost seem to throw it differently. I don't know if it's just a mental thing or what, but I think part of the disc golf manufacturing and all the different plastics is just, you know, for the feel, and to give variety for people to, you know, have that choice. But, you know, until you really get into bigger drivers that are really, really super flexible, I don't really see that you're going to have as much variation. Overall mid-ranges, I'd say overall tend to be a little more uniform, let's say, or harder to screw up, I guess, unlike, you know, your bigger rim drivers, how they can be wildly different from one batch to the next. That's something else I didn't mention here, but I mean, on all these Buzzes, I mean, these span probably about an 8-year range of production at least or so here, and they're really not that much different, if any. Again, my release, I'm sure it can stand some improvement, but you know, generally speaking, if somebody that's able to put them in about a 40 foot circle, you know, just out in the wide open, it's really not going to vary a whole lot. So anyway, I hope you guys have some value in looking at this. You know, somebody may say it's full of crap, but I don't know. But I'm just kind of showing you what my findings are with it, across the range of plastics there. I mean, I didn't throw Jawbreaker, but Jawbreaker, I've just never owned a Jawbreaker Buzzz to be able to compare it. But Anyway, that's all for now. Have a good one, guys.